As I said in the beginning of the conference, that when I realized that the theme of the conference is about love, my first reaction was I was very excited because I love positive subjects. And then I got a panic attack because in all my years in academic education, I never had a seminar on love. I'm an expert in human misery and I know nothing about love. Apart from that, from a personal point of view, now listen, what is happening in this room is confidential, okay? So let me stay in this room because I'm going to get personal. I was married 3 times.
So what?
And when I look around the room, and some people I know personally here, I'm asking myself a question. How many people in this room are actually married the first time and are still married? No, don't raise your hand, please, okay? Because you are in a minority and it's depressing. And you are a phenomenon, and I will put you in a museum. So maybe next conference you're going to teach us how to do it. So, as I was married 3 times and I know nothing about love, so what the hell I'm doing here? I came here because I teach only what I have to learn. So I've been listening to different talks, been on different workshops, and maybe it start to make sense. So I've collected some information which I'm going to share with you. I also assume that we normal people present in this room, we have experienced what is called a broken heart. Victor, by the way, have you been married only once and you stay married?
Me?
Have you been married only once?
No.
Okay.
Second attempt now.
Okay. I was worried for a moment. So, let's start. Before the transpersonal, I was involved in the New Age movement. I was doing rebirthing, and I was doing what's called affirmations. And in the New Age movement, there was a sentence that was said to me over and over again. You should love yourself more. Yes, I know that I should love myself more. But how? So, looking back, I wanted to find out what are the roots, where it's starting from. The Iroquois Great Law of Peace is talking about the 7-generation principle. That whatever we do, whatever decisions we make, it's affecting 7 generations forward. On that basis, I will also say that looking at this concept, we actually need to look at 7 generations back to understand where we're coming from, and from there move to 7 generations forward. Talking about the Jungian principle of the collective unconscious, I assume, and I'm saying I assume because everything I say is my personal subjective opinion and I just make assumptions. There are different contradicting theories which sometimes get me confused. So I'm assuming that somewhere in our unconscious, our ancestors are there. We might not remember them consciously, So, if we put behind us, imagine for a moment that behind us stands one of our parents, grandparent, great-grandparent, and 7 generations back. What is the feeling, what is the sensation that we get in our body when we feel their energy standing behind us? And then let's imagine that in front of us we're putting our children, grandchildren, or future grandchildren, future great-grandchildren, 7 generations forward. Because when we explore the subject of love, we need to see where it's coming from and where it's going to. So you got here the Russian Matryoshka, and in a way, when we talk again about the collective unconscious, you see that it's not only the Iroquois we're talking about the 7 generations, but even here you've got 7 dolls, and it seems like in different cultures we have this concept consciously, unconsciously, that we are one within each other. And then I found something very interesting. You see, we already know, as transpersonal people, that life does not begin at birth, but begins before that. We are all aware of the work of Stanislav Grof regarding the prenatal experiences, but I will extend it and say that life does not, it's not only the prenatal experience, but life actually begins at conception, and even before that. So let us imagine for a moment our parents producing us. No, my parents never did things like that. So, when I'm trying to think about it, or to sense it, what emotions my parents were experiencing at that moment. And what they say is, on a biological level, it is amazing to consider that the egg which became you was literally carried by your grandmother, since your mother developed her egg while she was in the fetus inside her mother's womb. Very interesting information, very interesting concept. So what is kind of ancient memories we carry within our system? So, the prenatal matrices, according to Stanislav Grof, so in the altered stage of consciousness, we can actually access memories from our prenatal stage, when we actually were inside our mother. I actually work a lot with those stages, not necessarily for holotropic breath work, but I'm going to talk later about the clinical applications of what I'm saying. But the memories of the time before our birth are stored in our psyche. So we've got 4 stages: the amniotic universe, okay, and then we've got what's called the good uterus and the bad uterus, which reminds me of Melanie Klein, good breast and bad breast. Looks like there is nothing new under the sun, and people just keep repeating similar theories. So, the good uterus, okay, when the mother, you see, I'm a man, so when I say the mother, I feel something out of balance inside me. because sometimes when I read psychology books and they talk about mother and child constantly, I feel that sometimes on a certain level, this is my subjective feeling, that we men, we were reduced to a state of sperm donors. We just ejaculate and then a baby is born and then is mother and child and a relationship between mother and child, and then we talk about good mother, bad mother. So the good uterus is a space when there is a harmonious, loving relationship between two parents. The good uterus is actually also the messages that are coming to this fetus outside of the womb. It's a reaction to the environment. So, in this good uterus, this baby will find peace, tranquility, and will develop all those feelings and qualities that you actually see on the wall. But when there is good, there is also bad, and in the bad uterus, okay, we are born with very negative experiences, death, danger, with the condensed experience, we are sometimes experience emotional and maybe even physical poisoning, because as the mind and the body are connected, we actually, when we're born, in my opinion, our immune system and our nervous system gets affected already in the womb. Because the way I look at when I work with people, in my opinion, I say in my opinion, all our so-called problems, physical or emotional, are just a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. I'll repeat it. All our problems, physical or emotional, are a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. We're just reacting. But this, what we call abnormal situation or negative situation, starts before birth. There is also some genetic theory, which I have difficulties with it, because I have sometimes clients coming to me and saying, I'm suffering from depression, and I was told that is genetic, because one of my parents suffered from depression and one of my grandparents suffered from depression. Well, in my opinion, if you grow up with a depressive parent, it's very unlikely that you're going to grow up as an ecstatically happy adult. But then, luckily enough, I found a book by Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief, and then he's actually saying that we are not victims of our DNA, but our DNA is constantly changing as a reaction to the environment, as our perception to the environment. So this is probably material that most of us are familiar with. In the third stage, the cosmic operation, when the first contraction starts, and in that stage, when actually there is a negative experience, in the context experience, the fetus will prevent the future born child from awareness of positive qualities, of the existence of love, and finally the birth itself, which is the passage through the channel. And I want you to imagine for a moment that you're going to become the midwife of your little self. I want you to imagine that you can go back in time to the moment of your birth and be there. And this little you is being born just now. And you are the one who is giving birth to this little baby. And you are the only person in the whole world that knows what kind of life this baby is going to have when he grows up. And you are the only person in the whole world that knows what kind of experiences this baby had in the fetus of the mother, because deep inside you know. And you are the only person in the whole world that knows, because the ancient memory is there. What were those experiences? So when you hold this baby in your arms that was just born, what is that you would like to say to this child? Because you are the only person in the whole world that knows what kind of life this child is facing. And nobody knows it better than you. And this method of giving birth to yourself, being the midwife at the moment of your birth, is a very important and powerful moment. And this first contact, this first eye contact, when this baby is born with his mother, because the question is, what the baby sees first before he sees himself in the mirror? He sees his mother's face, his mother's eyes. And this is this first experience. There was an interesting documentary done about John Bowlby, and they've done an experiment when a mother was interacting with the baby, and the mother was asked to smile and to send energetically love to her baby, and you saw this little baby smiling, and then the mother was asked to go totally blank and do a blank face, and you saw how the baby was reacting, and there was some horror and fear in the baby's eyes. So, the definition of the British Psychological Society regarding transpersonal psychology. Transpersonal psychology might loosely be called as the psychology of spirituality and those areas of human mind which move beyond the limited boundaries of the ego to access an enhanced capacity of wisdom, creativity, and unconditional love and compassion. Very nice in theory, and I know that the meaning of the transpersonal is to go beyond the ego, but I will say that before we go beyond the ego, we need to have an ego to go beyond it. You cannot go beyond an ego that you don't have. So first let's have the ego, then start flying beyond it. David Lukov, in his article about the history of transpersonal psychology, is using a term that is called spiritual bypassing. And I'm starting to make an effort to be aware with myself, okay, that I do have an ego that on a transpersonal level I can go beyond it. But if I go beyond the ego that I don't have, then I might lose contact with reality and humanity. And I'm here to serve my generation. So, love is very nice thing, it's very important. I know I should love myself, and it's written everywhere, and it's positive psychology, and it's very nice. And there was a question asked here, what is the opposite of love? I was thinking about it because the first answer came to my mind is, of course, hate. But then, looking at it deeper and deeper, I found out that the opposite of love is actually fear. For me, in my opinion. We have fear of getting hurt because we might have some kind of unpleasant experiences in our childhood and during our birth. It's not the fault of our parents. The poor things that didn't know how. So it's not the fault of our parents, it's the fault of our grandparents and grandparents, and it goes generations back. And if we're not going to stop, we're going actually to transfer this fear of love to the generation forward. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, but it actually is strength. Vulnerability is the ability of feeling emotional. And you know, when I travel around the world, 65 countries so far, and I work with people, I usually hear, in our culture we need to be strong. In our culture we should not express feelings. In our culture we should protect ourselves because this is our culture. Well, culture is just a defense mechanism, in my opinion. We're using culture as an excuse. Culture is something external, but deep inside we are all the same. This is why in this room so many of us from so many different countries gather together and we talk about one universal thing that we all feel in common. Vulnerability is the ability to express your feelings freely. But vulnerability is also something very scary. So sometimes when I feel weak and I feel the tears are coming up and I feel like I'm about to cry, I better leave the room and go outside because I don't want anybody to see me. And sometimes when I work with clients and the clients start crying, then they say to me, "Oh, sorry, why are you apologizing for crying?" And then, "Can I borrow a tissue?" "Yes, you can borrow a tissue as long as you can give it back." Vulnerability is to be able to share your weakness and make yourself vulnerable, and to make yourself vulnerable is to show your strength. Okay, so I've got a story for you. Many years ago, when I was normal, before I lost my mind and became transpersonal, I was a young man, very strong, sure of himself and confident. And in my opinion, psychology was for weak people that cannot handle themselves, and only strong people like me don't need psychology. Because I'm a man and I'm strong. So wherever somebody said the word psychology, I immediately jumped and said something. One day I was sitting in town in a coffee shop, having a cup of coffee. Next table to me was sitting somebody else, a man, drinking his coffee. So I felt like I wanted to communicate, have a conversation. I said, "Hello, how do you do? How do you do? Fine." And next question that I love asking people is, "What do you do for a living?" So he said, "I'm a psychologist." Yeah. As the moment he said the word psychologist, I saw red. Now I'm a Taurian, and I saw red. I was delighted. So I gave him a very long lecture about my opinion of psychology, my opinion of Freud, my opinion of the Oedipus complex, and how sick it all is. And because, you see, I love to argue and I love to be all the time right. I'm a man, I'm always right. So I talked and talked and talked, and he was just sitting there, and instead of arguing back, he was doing, It's called empathy. I was hating every moment. Nobody wants to play with me. So finally, I finished my speech because I could not find any more arguments against psychology. And it took quite a long time. He looked at me and he said, "You finished?" I said, "Yes." He said to me, "Listen carefully. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask the question twice. And I'm going to give you my phone number. Here it is. When you find an answer, please contact me." I said, "Okay. What's the question?" He said, "The question is, are you strong enough to show your weakness? Or you are so weak that you have to pretend that you're strong all the time?" And I'm going to repeat that. Are you strong enough to show your weakness? Or you are so weak that you have to pretend that you're strong all the time? It was the first time in my life that I did not have an answer. Till then, I always had an answer for everything. I just went quiet. He put his phone number on my table and he disappeared. I went home feeling very angry, very resentful. I felt like my male ego was wounded. Somebody became more clever than me, which is impossible. But after 2 weeks, I picked up the phone, I went to meet the man, and this was my first psychotherapy teacher. This is when I started my psychotherapy training. And then I understood that there is a lot of strength in vulnerability. There is a lot of strength of showing our weak and soft side. Well, it took me 3 marriages to understand that, but it's never too late to have a happy life, and it's never too late to have a happy child. So then we have intimacy. Look at this man, he's wearing a mask. My friends tell me I have an intimacy problem, but they don't really know me. How can I know you if you're wearing a mask? How can I know you if you always tell me how wonderful, strong, intelligent, and clever you are? Where is your soft spot? Where is the real you? And then I came across Donald Winnicott, who has written an article about the capacity to be alone. So, falling in love is also about entering a relationship. And when I enter a relationship, who am I that enters this relationship? And if I'm not able to be with myself, how can I be with somebody else? So suddenly, all my existence, all my emotional balance depend on having love in my life and a partner. Because if I'm not in a relationship, I'm half a person. In the capacity of being alone, he said that the capacity to be alone is one of the most important signs of maturity and emotional development. Because at that time, at that moment of solitude, we have time to reflect and to get in touch with ourselves. To look inside, who am I, what are my needs? Now, Maslow, in his hierarchy of needs, now I was once told, Maslow never done a pyramid, his editors did. Okay, Maslow in his hierarchy of needs, when he talk about the esteem needs, he actually divides the esteem needs into two parts. He said, first part is I'm receiving esteem from others. Second part, I can develop my own self-esteem. So, talking about this principle, when I go one step down and I look at belonging and love needs, and this New Age sentence, you should love yourself more, it's still ringing in my head. I would say, how can I love myself? Love thy neighbor like you love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, don't bullshit because you cannot love anybody else. Okay, I know this sentence too. But how can I love myself if I don't know if I've not experienced it? So I need to receive it from someone, then I'll be able also to give it, but to give it to myself. So if in my childhood, when my poor parents did not knew how to raise me with love, because generations back we needed to be strong, fight wars, survive different these political, economical disasters. We needed to work hard. The poor thing did not know how to give love. So what is that I need to do? Is to first start to get love from somewhere. In the therapeutic relationship, in the proper therapeutic relationship, when I'm not being analyzed and diagnosed, my therapist will sit there and will hold the space for me and give me some unconditional and compassionate love. And then later on, working with my inner child, I will start to give love to this child. Because I want you to imagine for a moment a little child standing in front of you, and you don't need to close your eyes. And this little child is the little you. Look for a moment at the face and the eyes of this child. And when you're looking at the face and the eyes of the child, what is that you see? And when you see what you see, and you feel what you feel, what would you like to say to this child? And what would you like to do? Because you are the only person in the whole world that knows how this child feels. You are the only person in the world that knows what this child needs. Nobody knows it better than you. No psychiatrist, no psychologist, not even a transpersonal psychologist will know better than you what this child really needs. What would you like to say and to do? So at that moment, when I start to find the love towards my inner child, the love towards myself, at that moment, I can satisfy my psychological needs to love and to be loved with another person. I hate myself, but I love you. I hate myself, but I love my children. And when you probably we all had the experience when somebody looked us in the eyes and said, I love you. And suddenly deep inside I said, nah, you don't love me. You're just after my body and my money. Now, Robert Sternberg's triangular theory of love, he talks about 3 types of love: passion, infatuation, empty love, commitment, and liking and intimacy. Now, in my opinion, and when I say that, some enlightened people don't like when I say that, but I will say it anyway. There is something that comes before love. What comes before love is sex. Sex comes before love. Maybe it doesn't resonate with your enlightened self, but when we see the person, the first thing we have is what we see before I even know your name, before I even hear the sound of your voice. I just see the shape and my hormones are running wild. So I ask you for a drink, and then we do you know what, and then we get married, and then we have 2 children, which exploded into life, and then suddenly we realize that we don't actually know what love is. What also Sternberg is saying, that the infatuation, the passion love, lasts between 6 up to 30 months. And then it's over. Because once we finish doing the Kama Sutra from cover to cover, what happens next? We've done all the positions. What happens next? So ideally, it's supposed to shift into a romantic love, creating liking and intimacy, but also have some commitment. I'm not saying that, I don't have a judgment that sex comes before love, but it's a question of awareness of that I know that there'll be a point that there'll be nothing else left, and then what we do with it. And as I've done it 3 times, I told you I was married 3 times, okay, for short periods. So when I finished the Kama Sutra, I was divorcing and finding the next Kama Sutra. John Lee, when he talks about the colors of love, understand we have a seminar on that later? Oh, it's not here. Okay. What he's actually saying, that he defined 6 basic styles of love. He talked about eros, which is the romantic love of beauty. He talks about mania, which is obsessive love. It's my woman. Nobody's going to take her away from me. And we have to go to be all the time together, and we have all the time to talk to each other and not abandon each other, etc. Lotus, which is the playful life, game playing, and I love playing games. I do play. Somebody loves you. Do you answer the phone when you make love usually? No, it happens.
It was something to ask me more.
Yuri, depends not a position.
There is Storge, love as a friendship. But then, in Mania, when Eros and Ludus are together in styles of love, we actually have what's called obsessive love. And in this passion in the beginning, okay, we might be obsessed about the other person. After a while, there is another sentence that I used to use quite frequently: I need my space now. I'm going on a conference and I need my space. Stay at home. Pragma, which is Ludus and Storge. Storge is love as a friendship. It's realistic and practical love. We need to be also practical, because somewhere I heard that there is no poetry under a leaking roof, and sometimes when your roof is leaking and there is not enough food on the table, or you're fighting for survival, sometimes it might be difficult to hold love when you have to struggle all the time. So sometimes we do need to be realistic and pragmatic. And of course, agape, which is also called transpersonal love, is Eros and Storge, and which is the selfless love, that is also called the unconditional love. And in a way, as I see it, it would be useful to have all of those, because these are the stages that we go through in our relationship and development of love. I found a book, The Heart Speaks, by Dr. Mimi Gurneri. She is a cardiologist, and she actually practicing integrative medicine, and she pointed our attention to the fact that the heart has its own brain. The heart is communicating with the brain, and the heart is affecting the brain. Because universally, when we talk about love, we put our hand on our heart. Well, sometimes when I ask somebody, do you love me? The answer I got is, I think so. I said, love is not something you think, love is something you feel. I think so. So when you're going to feel it, please let me know if I'm still available. Now, you see, there is actually nothing new under the sun, because John and Beatrice Lacey in the 60s found out that they discovered, okay, nothing was discovered because it was always there, that the heart is not just a pump, but also an organ of great intelligence, with its own nervous system, decision-making powers, and connections to the brain. They found that the heart actually talks with the brain, communicating in the ways that affect how we perceive and react to the world. The heart has its own intelligence. But one of the things that we do, we are struggling between what we think and what we feel. As intellectual people who read too many books and go listen to other horror stories, and other negative people experiences, the brain and the heart is sometimes in a conflict. So, I tell you how I do it, okay? Personal experience, vulnerability. I fall in love. Then I start to worry. What if it's not going to work? So what I do, I give only 50% of myself. And when I feel that she feel fear that she might leave me, because I am a man and I cannot handle rejection, I leave her 5 minutes before she leaves me. And then I go to the next one, and this time I give only 25%. And I escape on time. And one day I was not careful enough, because I went on a seminar and some transpersonal told me to open my heart. So I opened my heart to somebody, and she left me. And then I made a decision. Never again. I never fall in love again. Never. This is it. No more. 5 minutes later, I found myself in deep shit again. Because it's nothing to do with the brain. Love is the most it is an illogical and irrational feelings. As I said before, all our so-called problems, physical and emotional, are just a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. The next theoretical assumption that I make, I want to remind you that theory is something that is opposite of the truth, and I'm making assumption that all our so-called problems, physical and emotional, are illogical and irrational. There is nothing logical and rational about our problems. So any attempt to logically understand or analyze, in my opinion, is a waste of therapeutic time. So, excuse me if sometimes I'm not scientific and deep enough, and I tell you some jokes, but in my opinion, we should have also fun apart from getting deep into deep psychology. So, this is a story that I told once in Varna, in the conference. I sit in my office, the phone rings. Client on the phone. Yes. How much for depression? Are you buying or selling? So we book an appointment. He comes, he sits next to me. I never ask what's the problem, because we don't have problems. We just have normal reactions to abnormal situations. I said, what do you want? What do you need? I want to understand why I have depression. Intellectual, you want to understand. Okay, listen, if you want to understand, I'm going to explain to you, no problem. According to Freud, when you were 2 years old, and you were sitting on the potty doing caca, and you were playing with your hand in the caca, your mother came and knocked you on the hand. As a result, you developed a complex that later in your life developed as depression. Does it help you? No. What do you need from me? I want not to feel depressed. Listen, when you go shopping and you do a shopping list, you don't write on the shopping list what you don't want to buy. You write on the shopping list what you want to buy. What do you need from me? I want my life back. No way you're going to get your life back. You want me to take you back to the place when it all started? I'm not doing that. What do you want? Finally, after 40 minutes of torture, he said, I want to feel happy. Thank you. Now I know why we are here for. And then we booked the next appointment. He left. I got a panic attack because in university I never had a seminar on happiness. As I said to you before, I'm an expert on human misery. I know nothing about love or happiness. So, this is the struggle between the heart and the brain, and we're trying. You see, there's another sentence. Follow your heart. Yeah. How? Exactly how? I know that. You must love yourself more. Follow your heart. No, don't. You have to be practical. But you see, practicality is also important. I remember one woman said to her daughter an interesting sentence which makes me think. She said, when you bring a man home that you want to marry, make sure that your parents and his parents can sit together, have a cup of tea, and have something to talk about. Okay, maybe. Interesting concept. Not sure about it, but it's interesting. So, you see, this is what the brain says to the heart. You never learn, do you? And I know people personally that decided, this is it, I was already married, it failed, and I don't need it anymore. I closed the shop, I don't need to fall in love, I don't need relationships, I'm an independent person. I read a lot of books about codependent relationships. Okay, which when I go to a relationship, I'm becoming dependent on somebody else, and it takes my freedom away from me. And then I read another book called Women Who Love Too Much, and then, no, all this thing is not good. I'm not going to fall in love, I'm not going to be in a relationship, I don't need to love and to be loved because I love myself. I'm going to become a psychotherapist and help other people to find love. All right. So here is the wounded heart. Now the interesting thing is, all those new researchers have shown that the heart has its own intelligence and the heart is more important than the brain, etc. But ancient Egyptians who never went to university, they did not have an academic degree, and they never done research. Well, I did not come across any, but if you have some old Egyptian research, please let me know. I will study Egyptology so I can read it. But what you see here is that they say when the ancient Egyptians were mummifying a body, they were actually, the first thing they were doing, they were extracting the brain through the nose from the person, because the brain is not important. And the most important organ that they were preserving in the process of mummification was the heart, because the heart is more important than the brain. So many thousands of years ago. And suddenly we discovered it. We discovered nothing. It's part of our universal knowledge. It's part of our collective unconscious. And sometimes maybe we just need to look inside, because this ancient wisdom does exist within us. Hazrat Khan, which is the founder of the Sufi order of the West, said, the body is the instrument of the mind, and the mind is an instrument of the heart. So the heart lies within the core of all of us. Now, I want to talk with you about what's called clinical applications, because theories are very nice. What is important for me is what do I do with it when I'm actually helping another human being? What are the clinical applications of my work? So, when the person comes to ask for help or for guidance, or what we also call therapy, in my opinion, a client comes to therapist as a child to a parent. A client comes to therapist as a child to a parent. Because first, I've got some imbalances inside me. I'm sitting and I'm trying logically to sort them out. The more I'm trying not to feel or trying to be something I'm not, the more complicated it is. So then I'm going to a specialist, but in a way deep inside, on an energy level, I am a child who came to a parent to ask for guidance. So all these 7 generations back and prenatal experiences are very important. But what we need to do is start from the here and now. And the first question I'm asking is, whose heart is for your heart the most difficult heart to talk to? Whose heart in your heart is the most difficult heart in the world to talk to? I sometimes have to repeat this question a few times until it really sinks in. I even sometimes ask the person, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and listen to my question again and again. Whose heart is for your heart the most difficult heart in this world to talk to? And then I want you to guess what is the most common answer. Mother, father. And then what I do, using what Jung call active imagination, or what can be also called hypnosis. In my opinion, it's all the same, just have different names. Nobody invented anything new. I'm creating an imagined dialogue between your heart and the heart, the most difficult heart of the other person. And it's a communication from heart to heart, not from mind to mind. Because yes, but she told me, and she controlled my life, and she doesn't understand me, and when I told her, blah, 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 and it's accusation and blaming and blaming. But when I take the inner dialogue from heart to heart, all the dialogue is happening on a totally different level, on a more emotional level. Once we discover that, because no matter what is the presenting problem of the client, deep inside there is some issues with how I feel about myself and how I feel with other people around me. No matter what is the diagnosis, no matter what is the label, deep inside, a client comes to me and says, I've got 3 problems. I don't know where the number 3 comes from, but universal. I've got 3 problems. And I say to myself, okay, you've got 3 problems. I think you've got, if it's called a problem, you've got only 1 problem. But yeah, let's listen to all 3. But deep inside, it goes down to one thing. It goes to the question of love, of loving myself, being loved by others. Once I'm creating that, talking to the other heart, to create this exchange, this harmonious relationship. So, you look to me like a normal person. Yeah. Were you married more than once?
One.
Have you been married more than once?
Yeah. Numai deodată? Da.
Okay, that means you're normal. So you see, sometimes in relationship and in marriages, we repeat the same mistake over and over again. Why I always attract certain men or certain women into my life? Because I have a special satellite dish on my head, and I walk around and I see somebody with some kind of dysfunction, it does beep beep, and I'm going there and attracted to them. And it's the same one. I had 3 wives, okay? They were all the same. They were all the same. So, if we want to go to the root of the issue, I'm trying to avoid the word problem all the time. If we go to the root of the issue, if it's a relationship problem, it's a love issue, let's go back to the first man or the first woman in your life, your father and mother. And then I have a question that I want you to look inside and try to answer to yourself. When was the last time your mother or your father and your father looked you in the eyes and said to you in those words, I love you and I'm proud of you? When was the last time your mother or father looked you in the eyes and said to you, I love you? And sometimes I hear an answer, never. How you expect to grow up with an ability to love when never in your life you heard, I love you and I'm proud of you? And sometimes it goes all the way back there. But it's not the fault of your parents, because your poor father and mother might be never heard in themselves. Be strong, learn hard, work hard. So, active imagination, hypnosis, mindfulness. Then we have a present, we have the past and the future. And the only thing that exists in the present is our physical body. Our mind might escape to the past or to the future, but our body is always in the present and the body never lies. Sigmar, you agree?
Very okay.
Okay. He's the expert on the body, so
Give you a little bit more explanation, but
yeah, okay. Now, and we also love to escape into the past or the future. And even Jung and Adler and Maslow started to look at human beings and said, it's not only about what happened in the past, but it also what are your dreams and aspirations toward the future. Now, many years ago, when I was normal, before I became transpersonal, I was a history teacher. And I was teaching history to my students. I actually, to convince them that learning history is important, I said, how can you make one step into the future without knowing where you came from? So, I want you to imagine that you invite me to your house for a dinner. And I took your address, and I'm driving, and I got lost. As I said yesterday, I asked somebody, can you tell me where I am? Okay, he told me, you are in your car. Transpersonal psychologist gave me the wrong answer. So I pick up the phone and I phone you, and I said, my dear, I'm lost. Please give me directions. The first question you're going to ask me is, describe me where you are now. So it all starts with the now, where you are now, what's happening now in your life. I came to therapy because I had a difficult childhood. When I was 6 years old, okay? You are not 6 years old. Why you came now? Why we came now to this conference? Why? So, being in touch with my body in the here and now, sensing all those things happening to me, I will start to get in touch with my needs, with my fears, develop an awareness where it's coming from, and developing an awareness of what is my wishes. Where would you like to be 10 years from now? Just think for a minute. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? We have a fear of the future. So I'm going to help you to overcome that fear. It will take me 1 minute. And I want you to imagine that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you are exactly where you are now. Nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing. You are still doing the same job, living in the same house, maybe with the same person, and nothing, absolutely nothing has changed. If this doesn't scare you, please see a psychiatrist, not a transfer psychologist. Where I'm coming from, where I am now, and where I'm going to. Now, doing a so we starting with the now, we're going back to the inner child. We're doing some kind of dialogue in therapy, an imagined dialogue with our parents. If the parents are still with us in this world, then I will encourage the client to go and actually do it. One of the things that I like doing in therapy is what Dr. John Rowan calls personification, which means instead of asking you, tell me about your father, and then comes a long story, I am your father, what do you need from me? I am your father, what do you need from me? I don't need the long story, I need what is your need? And then what we're working towards is that actually you go back home and do the same process with your own parents. If your parent with us in this world, it's very simple. And I want you to imagine that I went to the other side and I asked them permission to bring your parent that is not with us anymore here to this room. And here is a chair, and imagine that the parent that has passed to the other side is sitting here in front of you. What would you like to say to this parent? Change chairs, now you are the parent. What would you like to say to the person? Simple Gestalt dialogue. And then we can start by using active imagination, mindfulness, hypnosis, constellation. We can actually start to access the prenatal experiences and start going 7 generations back, depend how deep the client wants to go with therapeutic process. Once we've done that, we can start moving forward to what would you like to do for the future generation. Okay, I found an interesting reference, okay. The tree as an expression of the transpersonal self. spiritually, unconditionally, innocence can only build on a firm foundation. None of them will exist without the physical body. A tree is strong as long as it's rooted to the ground, and we need those roots. Even if a tree is cut, if the roots are still there, the tree will grow again. Trees have been around us longer than humanity. And the tree has a lot of ability to wisdom because from the tree we produce paper, and on the paper we write. And even Alfred Adler, when he was talking about this concept of the unconscious, he was talking about the 5 roots, and then which is the unconscious, and the 3 branches which are developed as a result of our childhood experiences. So, just a manifestation of hypnosis. I fell in love with you, but are you the perfect one? Are you the one that I want? So you know what, we're going to have fun for a while, but I'm going to keep looking around, maybe there is something better. You know how many years I spent playing this game? Because there must be somewhere something better. But let me tell you something. You're not perfect. You are imperfect. I'm imperfect too. The question is, can we be perfect for each other? Because I'm perfectly imperfect and imperfectly perfect. And all this work is very important because the question is, what kind of world we want to leave behind us for the future generations? For me, therapy is not a job. I don't go to work. I go and change, help to change humanity. I have a daughter. She's 8 years old. You see, my mother never told me how to do it, so it took me some time. It is sad, it's not funny, you know. And I'm already bought a shotgun because the first time I'm going to take her out, I'm going to shoot the bastard. Okay? I'm very worried about what's happening out there. What is the kind of world that I'm releasing my child into? What kind of world I want to leave behind me for the future generations? This is such an important thing that we do. To teach people the ability to love and to accept love. And to be aware of fear. Because intimacy is, okay, I can be transpersonal, enlightened, but deep inside I'm a human being. I fall in love with you. No, don't worry, okay, it's another 3 minutes and it's over, okay? I fall in love with you, and then part of my vulnerability and intimacy will be in a certain stage to say to you, even if I'm man, I'm scared to lose you. I'm afraid I'm not good enough. You're going to all those conferences, you're developing, and you've got ideas, and I feel I'm left behind. I'm scared to lose you. If I don't have the ability to vulnerability and create this intimacy and cry in front of you, then I will start to be tough and strong and push you away and reject you and try to put you down. because it's all about your ego, all those conferences. Okay. Any questions or comments? Now, in the entrance to the hotel, by the